For over a century, the rules governing crime and punishment in India were bound within a colonial-era framework. That era has formally closed. This is the 2008 Criminal Manual, a physical representation of the dense and often friction-heavy code that dictated Indian justice for generations. On July 1, 2024, that legacy system was deactivated across the country. The replacement is designed to strip away the procedural delays of the past, reorienting the legal process around victims, with specific statutory protections for women and children. It relies heavily on digital integration to accelerate the speed of investigations and force trials to conclude within strict time limits. But rewriting laws on paper is only half the battle. The true administrative test is whether this highly optimized modern software can actually run on the country's aging legacy hardware. This diagram illustrates the 3 new statutory pillars that passed Parliament in December 2023 to form the new framework. First, the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or BNS, completely replaces the Indian Penal Code, redefining the actual offenses and their penalties. Next, the Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita steps in to replace the Code of Criminal Procedure, mapping out exactly how arrests and trials must be conducted. Finally, the Bharatiya Saksha Adhiniyam overwrites the 1872 Evidence Act, explicitly mandating modern investigative techniques and digital evidence collection. These 3 acts establish rigid statutory mandates, imposing new, non-negotiable operating procedures on every police officer and magistrate in the country. To evaluate the immediate impact of these mandates, we can model the criminal justice system as a continuous procedural pipeline. This model starts here, at the moment of intake, when a complaint is filed. The new codes introduce the Zero FIR mechanism. This allows citizens to register a criminal complaint at any police station, regardless of jurisdiction. Once that data enters the pipeline, the BNSS imposes strict statutory deadlines on police to complete their investigations. To help manage this flow, the code formally introduces community service as an alternative punitive measure for petty offenses. Structurally, community service acts as a pressure relief valve. By diverting minor infractions out of the main pipeline, the system attempts to prevent localized court dockets from overloading. By combining the wide funnel of the Zero FIR with aggressive countdown timers, the system is engineered to maximize the volume of cases entering the apparatus while demanding a much higher velocity of processing. As those cases move past intake, they enter the evidence-gathering phase. Under the new BSA framework, police are now legally required to conduct formal forensic investigations for all crimes carrying a sentence of 7 years or more. Executing that mandate requires physical, highly specialized infrastructure. You need a network of facilities like this forensic science laboratory, staffed by trained experts capable of processing complex biological data. The laws also demand the continuous video and audio recording of crime scenes, police searches, and witness statements. Now look at the de facto reality of a typical local precinct. You have officers managing cases with manual ledgers in aging spaces held up by structural scaffolding. These local stations are severely understaffed, yet they are expected to instantly process the new influx of external complaints generated by the Zero FIR rule. They also lack the secure digital bandwidth and server capacity required to upload, store, and protect the thousands of hours of mandatory video evidence they must now collect. When we map these physical deficits back onto our theoretical pipeline, the result is an immediate bottleneck. The high-speed data flow slams into the low-capacity nodes of local police and regional labs. Applying high-speed tech mandates to this environment acts as a ruthless stress test, instantly exposing the severe capacity limits of the state's legacy institutions. This physical friction introduces a secondary variable into the model, behavioral inertia. Ground-level officials and lawyers often resist adapting to these new digital provisions. Learning procedural software and managing digital chains of custody is viewed as uncompensated extra labor, carrying a high risk of operational errors. So, what happens when a strict statutory timer is counting down, but the local station lacks the capacity to process the forensics? The system forces an outlet. Investigators are inherently incentivized to find workarounds. The pressure pushes them to prioritize rapid, superficial resolutions just to stop the clock and satisfy the mandate. In this compromised state, local corruption or political pressure easily exploits the rush. twisting the outcome of a case under the guise of procedural efficiency. Without the necessary physical capacity, stringent timelines perversely distort the system. They produce administrative metrics that look successful on a spreadsheet, while actively failing the victims seeking thorough justice. Imagine you are a district administrator. A high-profile, serious case is dragging on, stalled by old institutional habits, despite the activation of the 2024 codes. You face a core governance trilemma. You must balance compliance with the new statutory timelines, the severe limits of your local capacity, and the entrenched behavioral resistance of your staff. To force the system into motion, you have two primary levers at your disposal: strict timeline enforcement and capacity building. If you choose to aggressively enforce the new legal deadlines without first addressing the bottlenecks, the system breaks. This unbalanced approach guarantees the behavioral distortions we modeled earlier. You force investigators to manufacture flawed, hasty closures just to meet your demands and avoid penalties. Applying punitive enforcement to a system that lacks the structural capability to comply guarantees corrupted outcomes, not efficiency. The correct administrative sequence requires localized infrastructural support to be established first. Before demanding speed, an administrator must prioritize funding accessible forensic nodes, deploying digital storage servers for video evidence, and executing specialized procedural training for officers. These localized, ground-level improvements dictate the quality of evidence that eventually reaches the highest tiers of the judicial system, like the Supreme Court of India. Resolving this gap between the legal text and the physical infrastructure is ultimately a massive test of federal coordination, requiring national legislative ambition to align with precise state-level execution. The Bharatiya codes provide a highly optimized architectural blueprint, but delivering justice requires administrators who understand how to build the physical foundation beneath it.